just missing one or two at the moment. Roy signed in, is he? Oh, it's Roy, but Roy's in there now. That's it.
It's the time of the day. Some of us don't, you know.
Yes.
I know they have a different time zone in Scotland, but yeah, that's not good for Norfolk.
Okay, are we ready, Joe?
Yeah.
Hello, Terry.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Amenities, Land and Property Committee on the 9th of September. Thank you kindly to everybody for the change of time today. Hopefully it's not inconvenienced you too much. We'll make a start with item 260.20, which is any declarations of any pecuniary interest, please. Are there any to note?
Terry, just in the small grants, as Deputy Chairman.
Lovely. Thank you, Stuart. 261, any apologies for absence, please, Chris?
None at the moment, but I've had a note from Chris Harvey, who said he may be a bit late.
Okay, duly noted. Welcome everybody else. Welcome, Carla. 262.20 minutes. So these are the unconfirmed minutes that haven't been to full council yet, but the first ones are the special council minutes from the 30th of July. Is everybody happy with those?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anybody not in agreement? No, lovely. Thank you very much. And the second one is from our meeting in the middle of August, from the 12th of August. Everybody happy with those ones, please?
Agreed again.
Agreed again. Thank you very much. So it's both sets of minutes agreed. Thank you for that. I'm going to move Mark Webster's report to the top because he needs to go and get out and do all the wonderful things which he's included in his report. So I'd like him to go next if we can, please, Mark.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Hopefully you can all see a picture of a small plant on your screens at the moment. Is that ever the case that everyone can see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Super. Well, but it's a very, very big deal botanically. On Friday, I had the senior curator of historical collections from the Natural History Museum in London over there, and the chief scientific officer of the British and Irish Botanical Society, and they were basically jumping up and down with glee about this thing. To give you an idea how rare this is, we have just, by finding it there, doubled the number of sites in Britain that it's found at. So this is a Schedule 8 critically endangered. It's an absolutely fabulous find. The BSBI guy there said to me, yeah, well, this now makes this the best wildflower recreation project I've ever seen, because this is on the scrape area. So that triangular area between the Avenue of London plane trees and the road, Nunsbridge's Road, is where it is, and it's there in some profusion. As I said, given the only other site that's known anywhere in Britain at the moment is a meadow in Oxfordshire, it really is quite a mystery how it got there and why we have so much of it. But it's an absolutely fantastic result. As I said, it is a huge contribution to nature conservation, which is, it's just super to have. It really puts that foot on the map, literally, for the species at least. So, as I said, we're absolutely delighted that has worked so well and produced something, so spectacularly rare. It's just absolutely wonderful news. So we're really delighted by this. Because it's Schedule 8, you're not even allowed to remove such anything, even a leaf, without a special license. We are also at the moment, although I'm sort of quite happy to tell everybody listening to this, we are asking people not to actually sort of really widely broadcast the exact location at this time. We're not sort of going to give it quite a lot of publicity just yet. We are going to collect some some of which are going to the Millennium Seed Bank in Kew, which again, as I said, the sample that was taken on Friday is going to be pressed at the Natural History Museum. It's it's the sample of this thing now. As I say, the status of this is quite extraordinary. So at the moment, until we've had a chance to collect seed for this year, we're not sort of widely publicising this. Apparently, we're likely to get the sort of botanical equivalent of Twitchers Decendulus in some numbers. So, as I said, just a really great news story, but just not widely broadcast yet. Although some people obviously do know this. As I say, I'm happy for you to know it and to be aware of it. And as I said, we're just absolutely sort of delighted to find this. I noticed a couple of hands up. I don't know whether you want me to sort of pause about before I go on to all the sort of general drudgery.
Yeah, we've got hands up from Jane, please.
Thank you. And how exciting, Mark. Oh, my goodness. Can we know the species name, please?
Yes, sorry, the plant. Yeah, I did forget one small.
I thought it was just me that missed it.
Yeah, it's called creeping or Apium repens, although it has been sort of reclassified botanically. But Apium repens or marsh, creeping marshwort, if you want to have a look at it online. As I said, you can go and have a look at it. We're going to be actually down there with the volunteers later today. We are sort of devising with the authorities. It's quite amazing to have sort of national authorities on this, advising us on this. It's really amazing. But we are working with the naturalists to try and sort of get a management plan in place for this thing, because obviously this has suddenly become our top priority for the site, which will involve probably sort of over the winter sort of trampling over a little section of it at a time to create sort of disturbed sort of muddy ground, which is apparently what it sort of really likes. So please feel free to have a look at it. It is small, it's really tiny. It's an umbellifer, so it's related to things like car parsley that you'll see down the lanes. But if you think that with a shrink ray, and it's a sort of a really tiny little thing that, and I cannot thank one of our volunteers enough who first brought this to my attention. We have a volunteer who's quite into his boss, and he said, well, this looks interesting. I'm not quite sure what it is. And it sort of snowballed from there, basically, up sort of via myself to the Breckland Flora group, and then bringing in, as I said, the from London. So yeah, I mean, as I said, it's really thanks to one of our volunteers that we recognise this, and yeah, just as I say, I'm so pleased. So yes, to answer your question, cut a long story short, creeping marshwort, Apium repens. Was there any other hands, or carry on with the
yeah, if you carry on. I haven't seen any other hands, Mark, so if you proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so on the same site, we will be there today doing quite a lot, actually. We're the damage, it's all rather unfortunate, but I don't think any of them are really sort of terminally problem. Some of them are going to be a bit of a funny shape for a while, but I think we have sort of tidied up as best we can, and we're going to be sort of finishing that job with the volunteers today. So we will sort of get our tree people to sort of advise further on that for the long term. But I would say they are sort of in a reasonable state to recover. And one of the things we probably will be doing sooner rather than later is removing those trees. Not really helpful now, and possibly unhelpful potentially. So we'll be removing those either today or later. The main priority for today, it's going to be quite a busy one, is of course the breach. So we will be sort of putting the flints in today at the breach channel with Ellis and Roger and I think Carl and Nick are both there already. So there I will be sort of joining them after this, along with some of our volunteers, and we'll be sort of doing the works to shore up that sort of barricade area around the breach channel, which was discussed and agreed at the last meeting. So that's as I said what we're going to be doing in that area today. So quite a lot going on one way around. It's all happening at Nuns Bridges today. Shall we go on to the next slide, please? Is that right? Yeah, the other thing you might have seen on the plane trees, just a passing thing, is that there was a little bit of yellow fly paper on one of them, which was a research project on checking whether there's a pest of plane trees arriving in the country. So if there's any news on that, we'll let you know. a bit. The water buffalo, of course, I said it really is all happening at Nuns Bridges. The water buffalo are there and are proving very popular. I understand somebody put on a video of them having a nice wallow, so which has gone down very well. So thank you very much to the mayor for doing that, which is, as I said, they're always really popular and it's really super. And still more news on Nuns Bridges. Hopefully you'll have seen that the footbridges have been patched up for this year, but next year we probably really will need to look at replacement. So okay, yeah. On possible. Don't know who's in charge of the slides, but can we have the next one now? So yeah, Himalayan balsam. We have sort of kept an eye on it. So it's just in very small numbers here, fortunately, and we hope to keep it that way. Lady Gentle Meadow, in the sort of far corner near Spring House, what had been a sort of little kids' den, has sort of gradually expanded into some kind of construction project. And when a sort of fence started to go across there, we have sort of acted to remove that and remove some of the aspects of the den. There were some quite heavy timbers on the sort of roof, so for safety reasons I did remove that. So if anybody does see sort of further kind of sort of larger sort of projects in the area, it's great for kids, great that kids are making dens in the site, so I absolutely love that, but we don't really want a sort of some sort of encampment. There hasn't been any sign of drug use or any other antisocial behaviour there yet, so all to the good so far. Okay, next one. Yeah, oh, I think we've done that. And we Barnum Cross. Can we go on to now? There's been a lot of work. I mean, our volunteers have really worked very, very hard in the sun, in particular on occasions. I have sort of kept their hours down a bit so that they haven't sort of ended up with heat stroke, but they've been brilliant at doing a lot of work to remove ragwort, which has been a real issue in previous years. It probably will keep coming back for a while yet, because it is a biennial, so next year will still be quite bad, but they've been really super doing that. It's a bit of a thankless task, so great thanks again to them for that. So between them and just managing, we hope to get that under control. And literally the first steps on the sculpture trail have been put in place. If we could have the next slide now, you can hopefully see some of those. Yeah, so there's new steps been put in place. The ones on the left there are opposite the very small car park at the end, which is actually on the sculpture trail route, and the ones on the right are opposite the main car park. So some of the really kind of precipitous access points to Barnum Cross have been given a much more sort of accessible or safe access, I think, because before they were really quite steep slopes going in and out of the site on some of the sites, and a lot of the other entrance points, it's more gentle. Yeah, a few bits and bobs about, I mean, Melford Common, we're just trying to keep on top of the sort of occasional vandalism and sort of and some low-hanging branches at Castle Park. I have now applied for the sort of free shrub tree plants for hedging along the Castle Lane fence, as agreed. Okay, next one. We wait to hear. I know we've got at least some of them, so we'll be able to get started on some of that. A few other bits and bobs, which at the time and mine, I won't go into unless anybody's got any particular questions about those sites. But there's, we're trying to keep things happening and trying to keep things sort of working all over the place, as well as the sort of the main, the real sort of high-profile ones. Yeah, okay, can we have the next one? I think we're, yeah, and so some really nice pictures from School Plain there, which we will, but I've streamed now, and that'll be raked up by the volunteers tomorrow. And we have had sort of reasonably positive sort of contact with the sort of I was a bit worried about there, and we've sort of agreed a sort of nice scheme of flowering shrub planting for sort of an area that you may see as a bit of a bare patch at the moment. Sculpture Trail Working Group, I don't know whether that's not on the agenda separately, is it?
No.
No, okay, I'll just have
just
a quick update, I suppose, to say then that we met and sort of there has been a sort of agreed set of priorities basically now for sort of pretty much what sculpture we're going to put where, so I can start to work that into a kind of a brief for artists, and then look for to take that forward. Volunteer group, well, I suppose today's news, national news, has probably kind of knocked this back. We were hoping to look for a sort of easing of the sort of restrictions on numbers of that, though I suspect we probably have to limit ourselves to booking of 6 or 5 plus me for the foreseeable future again now, which is unfortunate, but obviously it looks like that's the way things are going. So we did have a very nice fish and chips, which was actually recommended by I think certainly some members of this committee said, can you give them a picnic? Well, I can't sort of really cater for them myself as such in the same way as we used to, but we did get them a slap up meal, as they used to say in the Beano, or something like that, for as a thank you, which went down really well. So their thanks to you, I suppose, for suggesting that. And supporting the group, and it is a really important part, I think, of a lot of people's lives, and not just that rare plant, but all these other things shows what a difference I think their efforts make to the town. So yeah, as I said, I can't thank them enough for all the things they do. I think page, perhaps. I think this is about the yeah, so as I said, that's kind of been superseded by events now. I think we'll obviously have to stick with a limited number. So last page, I think now, which is just about the HODS events. So yeah, tree planting, I've applied for another considerable amount of trees for various sites around the town, including Nuns Bridges, if subject to public consultation, but there are plenty of other places we can use them. We may not get all of the ones we asked for free, see if but still there will be a significant number of tree planting, and it enables us to replace some of the ones we've lost due to the extreme drought early in the year. And again, we'll have to obviously thinking about this again, but the Heritage Open Days are not this weekend coming, but the one after that. Most of them are limited in numbers anyway, but yeah, I'm obviously literally just heard that this morning, so we may have to sort of just look at that again and make sure that we are sort of compliant when it comes to our events. That's it, folks. Any other questions? Basically, rattle through them, I'm afraid, as I said, but I've got
that's fine.
a few things to do though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Mark. What was really nice as well is the report came out in quite good time, so we could actually read it and digest it, because as you say, there's a lot of different information in there, which is really great to see. So I'm really grateful for that. I've got a couple of comments from myself, but I did see a hands up from Mike Brindleby as the next one.
Thanks very much, Terry. Just wanted to firstly thank Mark for an excellent report. It's very wide-ranging. And a brief comment on Lady Gentle Meadow. I do tend to walk there most days, and it's been much more heavily used in the last few weeks. Dog walkers, picnic, a group of girls with candles on the tree stump, and the den, I think, is 12-year-old boys with bikes. I've not seen any bad behaviour at all. It's nice to see it being used.
Yeah, no, as I said, I'm generally very happy to see that, and I've left a lot of the sort of standing stuff in there. As I said, from the den itself, the only thing actually removed was some large, not natural timbers, which, as I said, I did worry were hanging over people's heads. But hopefully it still functions as a den for all the right reasons. And as you quite rightly say, I'm delighted to see that people using it in the area and having fun.
I think Mike stole my thunder then, because that was exactly the comment that I was going to make, because I walk that route quite regularly, and it's nearly always families using the sort of pathway and the dens in particular, which is really great to see. I think it's something we need to keep aware of, because people potentially might get moved away from other hotspots that we're aware of, but certainly nice to see. I don't see any other hands up, Mark, so I just want to say, sort of on behalf of the committee, really a big thanks to you and also to all the volunteers. It's very valuable work, and it's very positive as well, which is great for the council and great for Thetford as a whole. So we're very grateful for all the work that's been going on, and good luck with the repairs today with the breach. It's hopefully that goes well, and some more good news when we next meet, or we'll probably all see it if we all venture down there at some point in the next few weeks. So. Anyone else, any other comments before we move on? I can't see any other hands up on my screen, so we'll release you, Mark, and release you into the wild.
Okay.
Go do some more good work.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, with that one taken care of, we'll move on to 26320, which is action points and updates to receive from Ros.
I'll just give a report back on the working group for King's Square, because I think that's the main piece of what we've managed to kind of progress over the summer. We've had a couple of meetings, and the group have ordered the replacement sign, and I've forwarded a separate PowerPoint to people so that they can see that. Were people able to access that PowerPoint from what the group were discussing?
Yeah, I don't think I did, because I was probably trying to do it on an iPad, but I don't know if anyone else has managed to see it.
I won't switch back, because I think everybody kind of knows what we're doing already. But it's basically, we're having the gilded sign, which will go into the square, and we've got two businesses that are sponsoring that. So West Brothers are going to produce the sign free of charge, bless them. And Warren Services, we hope, we haven't got confirmation of this, are going to help us with the actual fixings. And that means that we're only actually paying for the sign to be gilded and painted. And we're expecting that to look spectacular. We did get 3 quotes for the railings now. I have had 3. One of them was for cast iron, and the other 2 were for polycarbonate with the black coating. We did actually specify the polycarbonate with black coating, so I did go back to the people who were submitting quotes and said, look, can you change it? But they haven't come back to me with it. So although I wrote to 5, we've had 3 quotes back, 2 of which were in budget, because this is from our parish partnership project, which was 9,000, 4.5 from us and 4.5 from county. And we will go ahead with the cheapest quote and get those barriers installed. I just have to check through the contractor with the county council to make sure that they're happy with what we're doing. So that's an update from the King Square. Has anybody got any questions, or would the group like to add anything? Fine. And then
we'll stand in silence. Sorry, Ros, I've just got our hands up from Jane.
Apologies, Terry. I put my hand up on the screen and forgot which meeting I was in, because we all have these different protocols for all our different meetings, don't we? Apologies.
That's quite right.
In terms of the working group, did they have delegated responsibility to go ahead with awarding that tender?
Yes, within the budget.
Fabulous, thank you. Just for clarity.
They come, going to come up later, because we're probably going over our budget now, so that'll come up when we do the next bit. But we've only allocated what was allocated to the project so far. So we didn't win any of the Anglo and Balloon categories, the virtual ones, which is a bit of disappointment. But we have set up a number of projects which are going to put us in really good stead for our entry next year. Can I just add that we've got a couple of consultations that are going out. We've got the Nuns Bridges consultation, which Mark's written up, and we've also got the Guildhall Marketplace consultation that we want to get out too. Once sort of councillors, if councillors could come back to me, but sort of by Thursday, Friday, to say if they're happy with the Guildhall Marketplace consultation, we'll get that one out. And David and I have been talking about how to create a safe booth for councillors. So we're hoping to get that available in the marketplace from next Tuesday. There will be a perspex screen. So if councillors want to talk to the public and hand out questionnaires and stuff, we'll risk assess that. But anyone is welcome to come along and do some of that work next Tuesday, if anybody's interested. That's
okay.
my
Thank you for that, Ros. Yep, I think there's a hands up from Stuart, right? I think it was on King Street Square, Stuart, is that right?
It was, thanks, Terry. It's really just for the working group to put on their radar. One of the positive things
I can't hear anything. Can anyone else?
No, I can't hear.
Okay.
No, are you still with us, Stuart?
Yeah, I just got dropped off.
Sorry, would you like to start again?
No one
Yeah,
quiet.
Sorry. When we did get King Square remodel, one of the positive things, although there was only one really, was getting the utility box moved from the centre there around to the side of Hughes, and we got it all painted white to blend in. Unfortunately, I've seen we've now got a new utility box, nice green one, plonked outside of Hughes. You think, oh, we've done a lot of good work. I'm just wondering, can we try and camouflage it, get that painted white at some time to blend in with the wall? It's just one of those little things that draws my eye anyway.
Yep, will do.
Lovely, thank you, Ros. Okay, so that's Jay. Are there any other comments, please, on the action points or updates? I don't see anyone else indicating, so we'll note those, and again, sort of moving forward with King Street Square, which is great. Thank you to the working group for progressing with that. That's good. I'm not sure if I know Chris Harvey was due to be late. I'm not sure if he's here yet. We've got health and safety next on the agenda. Ros, do you want to introduce this one? There's some notes on the screen, I see, but if Chris is there, he might want to comment as well.
Yeah, we basically had the consultant come in August for their annual visit, and we really focused the whole of the visit on the Town Council's response to coronavirus in terms of health and safety of staff and the public in our different facilities. We did an allotment, a cemetery, Guildhall, Marketplace, Carnegie, and the full report will be going to the Personnel Committee and then to full council. But he was very impressed with the measures we put in place. And partly our measures have been good because the support we've had from Ellis Whitton has been brilliant. They've set up a coronavirus hub on their site. The risk assessments come out and are revised weekly depending on government guidance, and we've been able to do that. So a short report will be going into personnel about that. There has been issues with our play park equipment in Castle Park and Pine Close, and we're investigating that really, and we're rectifying it. We have gone out and put the tender out for the replacement equipment in Castle Park, because it's a health and safety thing. Obviously, we've not committed any money at all, and hopefully we'll be able to get those tenders back for the October meeting, because we can get it replaced sooner rather than later. And if any councillors who would like to be involved in scoring those tenders, if they could let me know, that would be great. I could set up the meetings so that we can get it done quickly and bring it back for the October meeting.
Thank you, Ros. Given that it's a tender, I'm assuming the cost is quite considerable. So is it quite sort of extensive damage? I'm aware of the damage at Pine Close. I'm not so aware of the damage at Castle Park.
We have to replace the whole unit. We have been aware of it for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think back in February the council asked me to go and get quotes. I went to get the quotes, and the quotes were over 10,000.
I see.
So,
okay.
So that's
fine. Just wanted to check. Dave, I can see you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just I walked past the play area in Castle Park yesterday, and one of the fence panels has been moved so people can access into the area where the damaged equipment is, and the sign was on the floor as well. So I don't know if that can be looked at. And I did wonder whether we can have a sign that actually says something about what our future plans are, that we are looking to replacing the equipment because it's end of life. Just I've had a few questions saying what's going on, so maybe a sign there would be good just to keep people informed. Yes. And can I just mention another health and safety issue at Nuns Bridges? There's a picnic table near the footbridge on the Ford Meadows side, which is very rickety and bits falling off it, and I think either needs to be repaired or removed because it's in quite a state. So that's me. Thank you very much.
I hate to say that, but I think that's one of Breckland's. Is that one of the picnic benches?
It is. It's the one that's nearest the footbridge. It's on the
the Breckland bench.
Full Bay side. Okay. Well, shall I report it to Breckland then?
Yeah, that would be best if you could just go
Okay.
to the website, and then
Oh.
I'll chase Steve. That would be good.
Yeah, I'll put in a report to Breckland then, using the usual channels. Okay.
Lovely. Thank you for doing that, Dave. Thank you. I don't see anyone else indicating for health and safety, so thank you for that update, Ros. Really good news about Ellis Whittam. I can vaguely recall the process of recruiting them, so it's encouraging that that's worked out so well, which is good. We'll move on to 26520. I think this is good news for Jane in particular. I'm going to read this, Jane. To review out budget and consider allocation of underspend to current priorities as listed below. I was quite pleased with that item. But there's a couple of bits which Ros has circulated around, and I think there's some slides to go with this as well, Ros.
Yeah, I mean, the two major bits of underspend at the moment were in the open space maintenance and in our floral displays, and they're both related to the new contract and the savings that we've made. And so if there are any questions on that first slide.
That's the budget figure slide, yeah?
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions on that one? No. Again, we had these well in advance. That's grateful for that, Ros.
So kind of the proposal is whether we allocate the two underspends, the open space management spend to the gilding of Thomas Paine and the enhancement of the arts and sculpture trail, and to crack on with those, and then the underspend on the floral displays to use that for the gilding and artwork. And actually we were all right for that bit, but the basically to use it for the King Square project so that we can complete everything from the working group, apart from the we're not the notice board is not happening at King Square because Breckland apparently going to take on that part of the project, and we want to replace the wooden slatting on the top of the benches with granite stone, but that's going to be too expensive this year, so we're thinking that might be something for priorities next year, but I am getting the cost. So basically the hanging basket underspend would be for the planters and enhancing the King Square project as is at the moment.
Lovely, thank you. I've got a hand up from Jane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whilst I love these recommendations, I was wondering if the consideration has been given to the bridges on Ford Meadow as well, being very, very mindful of the world that we're living in at the moment. People are keen to take exercise outdoor, and we should be encouraging that. And I was wondering if perhaps the bridge replacements could take a priority and perhaps be utilised within these underspends. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jane. I did consider that myself, actually, when I read Mark's report. I can't recall, I can't flick back and forth too easily, but the repair work that's been done, I got the impression that that will last for a period of time. So I did wonder if when we set the budget for ALP in a couple of months' time, or probably next month now, actually, we give consideration to that at that point for the next financial year. But, you know, if members want to do differently, we can do, of course, but I got the impression the repairs will last for a while yet. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Ros.
Yeah, I think we do definitely need to replace that bridge at some point. It would, yeah, and maybe put it in for next year's priorities would be great, really.
So if we ask Mark to look at possible costs at this point, Jane, and then we can either review within year budget in a few months' time or budget for next financial year, get an indication of how much it might be, I think will be a good next step. I've got a hand up from Mike Brindle, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. To follow up the last point, just to stress the importance of that area, I think the water buffalo are back now. So if that's the case, we will get more people wanting to use that area. So it may be important to at least to keep an eye on that, which I know Mark does. I wanted to come back to the recommendation about the floral underspend, which I absolutely support. One of the problems around town is we put up planters, and we do this already, but this is going to add more planters They look superb when they're put up, but they're not maintained. We don't have people weeding and deadheading, to put it in blunt terms. And I think it would be something we might encourage Mark to run a little group on. I'm happy to join such a group just to keep the things going. They can last a lot longer, months longer, if they are maintained once they've been installed. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. I think that's a valid point. And Ros will let Mark know that you're volunteering, which I'm sure he'll be very grateful of.
Yep.
Any other hands up, please, on the recommendations that are on the screen? Just one for me, Ros, while people are talking. The Sculpture Trail Working Group, when we walked around, several of us sort of identified the trees, and hopefully I get this right, but the epicormic growth on the base of a number of the trees along the river is quite extensive and actually really sort of blocks the view of the river. I would certainly be keen, given it's an underspend from vegetation management, that we give thought to in key areas, particularly around Nunsbridges and along the spring walk there. If we can use some of it, we're not going to attend to every tree, I'm quite sure, but if we could use some of it to enhance the view along the Sculpture Trail route, I would certainly be very keen for that.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think the two recommendations there are along the spirit of what the budget was for originally. So can I have a proposer and a seconder, please, for the two recommendations on the screen?
That, Mr. Chairman. Jane James.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane. And a seconder?
I'll second it.
Lovely. I think that was nice, Brenda. I was just in a hands up from Roy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was only going to be, not only is it masking the view of the river along there, I think we ought to look at that as a health and safety issue. I've had many people with children and people without children who have said you cannot see, or cars can't see the kids coming out from underneath those oak trees. And we have the same issue up at Castle Park, and I'm going to try and take it to county as a health and safety issue. You just come in, you know as well as I do, who owns the land, it's not ours, and all the rest of it. But I think it's something that as a town council we should be pursuing as a health and safety matter, as a proper safety measure for our residents, and perhaps we can get somebody else to pay for it.
Duly noted, Rowan. We wish you well with that. But it is certainly an issue in a number of locations. But if we, within the recommendation, if we prioritise those which are an issue along the Sculpture Trail, then I think that ties in nicely with the recommendation as it is. But as you say, wherever we can get these things addressed with the relevant authority, that would be good news, I think. But certainly Brecken's just as bad. I've tried in other locations for trees that I know are theirs. So, but there we are. Something beeped. I must have a notification. Yep. That's Ros. Lovely. Thank you for that, Ros. Everybody happy? We've got a proposer and a seconder. All in agreement?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anybody against? Nope. Chris Crimmen?
Thank you.
You happy?
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Good. Just check.
Okay.
Just check. Oh well, thank you. Right, it's fairly uncontroversial, this one. I think most people are generally happy, which is good. Yeah. Spending underspends is always easy compared to worrying about overspends, I think. Thank you very much for that, Ros. It's good to use that money on some really positive things. We'll move on to 26720, which is Play Park maintenance, and specifically Harriet Martineau.
Right. We did have a meeting. We tried to get together with Ian Dixon and Stephen Hunt from the Croxton Road. Ian managed to come, and we had the meeting, but there was still a lot of questions still to ask. I did send an email over to Stephen last week with the breakdown of what's happened, which is obviously what you've got in front of you there. And Stephen has said, look, they've earmarked £700 for the play area. and he sees that there will be very little problem going ahead, you know, with them paying half of the cost. So really, basically, we're asking the council to go ahead to get the installation of the equipment at a cost of £1,375, and Croxton Road have committed £700 towards the project as well. But I think we'll only ask them for half of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any councillors want to comment on this? I know, Mike, you do attend Croxton Road fairly often. Does that all sound sensible to you? Are you still with us, Mike? No.
Dave has also been involved.
Oh, yeah, of course. Dave, I'm sort of particularly keen to hear from ward councillors.
I can come in if you would like. Yeah, I haven't really got anything in particular to say, but apart from that, I would agree with that proposal that we pay half and they pay half.
Yep, if they've got the money, and it's the same principle we've adopted elsewhere, so that sounds good to me. Would you like a proposal and a seconder, Ros, for this recommendation?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a proposer, please?
I'm happy to propose Dave Hodgkinson.
Thank you, Dave. And a seconder?
Second, Mike Brindle.
Lovely, thank you, Mike. All in favour? Yeah, any against? No, quite happy. That's good. It's been a long time. Well, I think they've had some work done up there, which has made an improvement, but this is a sort of next step, really, isn't it? So that's good to see. Thank you for that, Ros. Next one along, toilet cleaning and opening, to consider options paper on the future arrangements for Thetford toilets.
I've done some figures, but I haven't really done pros and cons, because I started to do it and it seemed the pros and cons I think we're all really aware of, you know, and I think in the end it comes down to what the council want to do, you know, in terms of having our own direct staff or whether we go out to contractors. I would say at the moment that with the coronavirus, you know, potentially being on the rise, I'm wondering whether people wanted to continue with the temporary arrangement for another 3 months before we commit to the tender, or whether we wanted to appoint staff or commit to the tender. Really, in terms of pricing, there's not much difference between option 2 and option 3 at the moment, given our current contractor. But I would imagine that when we did go through a tendering process, the contracted cost could fall significantly. But at the moment, there's not much difference between the two.
Thank you. Could you just clarify before I take hands up, if we were to go through the tender process to see if we could get a better price, there's no onus on us or requirement on us to appoint somebody through that tender process. We could just see what results of the tender would be. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to check that. I've got hands up from Jane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Realistically, you know, bearing in mind that we've just had well, we haven't had announcements, have we? We've had press leaks of a potential announcement today. Which of the options would give us the most flexibility and ability to, for want of a better phrase, pivot as you know, scenarios change and the needs change? Because I'm concerned if we commit to one route, you know, this is an ever-changing landscape, and I think realistically we need to be in a place where we are most flexible to adapt and respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. That's a very valid point. Ros, do you have a sort of immediate sort of thought on that? Is there one that immediately jumps out as being more flexible in your view?
Well, the temporary measure really at the moment, but I think perhaps we should go out to tender, keep the temporary measure in place for you know, until we get the responses back from the tender process, and then we can decide what we want to do. I think we can build in flexibility into the tendering process when we go out. Obviously, once you employ your own staff, a lot of flexibility is gone. And well, you get flexibility in how you deploy people, but you don't get flexibility in budget. You can't decide to spend more or spend less. Once you've got staff in place, you're committed to pay them for what they've, you know.
Absolutely. I am mindful of Jane's point, because I'm sure all businesses, organisations are in the same boat at the moment. It's sort of nobody's got a crystal ball, and particularly something as important as sort of health and safety conscious as the toilets. I wonder if we keep the current arrangements for the time being, bearing in mind the flexibility they give us, but also put it out to tender. So I'm all for having as much information as we can possibly have. And if we were to put it out to tender, then and we write it in a way that we could get as many options through the tender process as we can, that then we can review it when they come back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I've only had 2 complaints about the reduced hours, 10 till 4.
Okay.
I've actually had more compliments about how clean the toilets are. I think people are more happy with the state of them as opposed to the opening hours. I just wondered whether councillors had feedback about the opening hours.
I shall bear that in mind. I'll take Jane first and then Stuart, but if others want to come in on this, then please do indicate in the chat. But Jane first, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you've indulged me for speaking twice on this matter. If your comments were a proposal, I would like to second them.
Lovely, I'm happy to propose that, and Jane noted as seconder. Thank you, Jane. Stuart, please.
Yes, just in anecdotal evidence on the opening hours. I've been working down at Dad's Army, so I've seen some people going to Cage Lane, both before the 10 o'clock and after the 4 o'clock. So there is a little bit of demand there. I suspect we ought to, just bear in mind, once things do get to a new norm, shall we say, that we may need to extend it. But at the moment, I'm happy to keep it 10 till 4. But I know once things are more open, there will be a need to open up longer.
Lovely. I think that's fair comment, Stuart. Thank you. If people do have any feedback about opening hours or cleanliness, do encourage them to go through the usual town council procedure for compliments, comments and complaints, because it just helps Roz and others when we're sort of formulating ideas and proposals. The more feedback we have, the better. I certainly haven't had anybody speak to me about the opening hours, but I have seen for myself and I have had comments about the cleanliness. So the more information, the better, I think. I don't see anybody else indicating. So the proposal is to stick with the status quo for the time being, but to put it out to tender and then review when they came back in, sort of not predetermining anything. We'll wait and see what the results of the tendering procedure is. Are members happy with that, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anybody not happy, please? Agreed. Lovely. Thank you. Ros, does that give you enough to go on for now?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
No, thank you for all your work you've done on that. It's, as I say, nobody has a crystal ball, but we're taking the sort of tentative steps at the right point, I think, is the key thing. So that's good to see. Moving on to
Chris Crimmen, could I just ask? There's no limit on that temporary arrangement at the moment. It's not 3 months. It's just open-ended.
That's a very good point, Chris. I'm not sure what sort of powers we have. I don't think it could be completely open-ended. Shall we say on a monthly rolling basis until otherwise? I'm looking to Jane, really, Jane, with your finance hat on a sort of rolling basis until otherwise determined.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that would probably be the most appropriate. It then echoes the approach that we've taken in terms of the review of the use of the market square by businesses. But obviously, to use that overused phrase, we are in unprecedented times.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jane.
And Chair, sorry, I've just had an apology from Councillor Hollis.
Lovely. Noted. Thank you for that, Chris. Right. I'm going to hand over to Dave Hodgkinson, who's put some work in. We're on small grants 26920. First one is bullet point 1, to consider applications and future arrangements. Dave very kindly did some work reviewing the current policy, so I'll let you explain to us, Dave, what they were.
Okay, I mean, I will come in at this stage, but I think my bit is the second point, because I think the applications and future arrangements might be about discussions with Norfolk Community Fund, if I'm right.
You are right. Sorry, that's me reading them the wrong way around. We'll do your.
Yeah,
bit
I don't mind doing mine
first,
first if you want to. Yeah.
Yes, please.
I think you all had. I've just got to get it up now. I think you all had my marked up copy of the the grants application policy. This comes out of a discussion from the last meeting that we had, where it was demonstrated that there was a bit of an anomaly in our policy. And the major thing to consider, I think, is at the bottom of page 1. Have people got this policy in front of them? I'm not sure. Okay.
Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Right, bottom of page 1. Then well, there's a little bit there I'll deal with. It says this grant is for new activities, services, and I think a lot of our grants haven't been for new activities but continuing activities. So I'm not sure of the relevance of new. So I'll throw that one into the mix just to complicate things. But the main thing is the wording is and not normally for routine general maintenance or running costs. But on page 3, if we scroll down to page 3,
Well, I haven't got that one.
It just says that, and there's a list of things that won't be funded, and one of them is general maintenance and running costs. And my suggestion is that we change that to general maintenance and running costs will not normally be funded, and then that will be in line with the statement at the top on the bottom of page 1. So I think that's the major thing that we're going to consider. And then there are a few other things that I picked up while I was reading through, because there are references to the large grants that used to be available, and so those references are no longer applicable. So I recommend that they come out. And then just underneath the item on page 3, it says grant applications will not be made retrospectively, and I think it should either say grants will not be made retrospectively, or it should say grant applications may not be made retrospectively. It's just a semantics thing, really. So those are the amendments I'm suggesting. So I think have we got? No, I think we haven't got any hands up, so I don't know what. Oh, so we've got an agreed from somebody. And now we have a hands up from Jane. So if Jane would like to come in, that'd be great.
Sorry, flicking between screens. I forgot to take myself off of mute. Many thanks. I have concerns about some of the changes. I'll be completely honest with you. The idea for the terms of new activities, services, equipment, events actually has been held up in an awful lot of our things. So if we look at the most recent one, in terms of the COVID response, it's been supporting people and groups to provide a new element to their service. So I think that is right. And I think it is right to be in there. And I personally fundamentally oppose the grants being used for routine general maintenance or running costs. And actually, I say that very specifically as a treasurer to a number of charities and local groups. If you can't balance your books in your normal day-to-day, why should the people of Thetford subsidise that? It's very different, for example, thinking back to over some of the more recent applications, for example, Cora, they had a very specific project, a new project, and they wanted to do it, and they pulled in part of. And I always remember Terry mentioning that this is our way of supporting and often opens up additional match funding from other people and demonstrates a level of support from the town council for its community. And I don't think general routine maintenance and running costs actually falls into that, because theoretically we're saying, can you pay the electricity bills? Well, if you can't cover those costs, perhaps you should be looking at your business plan, whether you're a group or a charity or what. I completely agree with DH4, remove as large groups, grants do not exist. That is absolutely correct, as is DH3 in those terms. In terms of grant applications will not be made retrospectively, DH6. I understand what you're trying to say there. However, if our funding is critical, should you be going ahead with a project and committing to a project if you haven't got your ducks lined up in a row? And I'm very mindful that that's very much a business approach. You know, you don't commit to things until the funding's there. So I'm not sure that we should get rid of that. I do not believe that anything should be awarded retrospectively. Thank you.
Okay. Can I just come back on you on that last comment? I'm not suggesting that we remove that. I'm suggesting that the wording is incorrect, the grammar is not right, because it's not an application could be made retrospectively. We're not going to award retrospectively. I think it should probably say grants will not be made retrospectively. It's just a very minor semantic point on my part. So,
noted, Dave. I'll change that.
Yeah, was that what you wanted to say, Ros? Because I noticed you had your hand
No,
up.
I just wanted to say that the reason that we were having this conversation about this was that basically I was contacted by a community group that was struggling because they haven't been able to run their normal funding activities during COVID, and they were struggling, and that's why this ended up being on the agenda. Just
yeah. Okay, and then we've got a comment from Mike, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Just wanted to support the comment made by Jane about running costs. We have occasionally given funds for running costs. I've always been rather unhappy about it, and I would welcome the opportunity to make it clear to organisations that we are not going to finance running costs. So that would be me supporting Jane's comment. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, my answer to that would be that we need to come to a decision on that, and so the two options are that we either change the wording on page 3 or we change the wording on page 1, because what I would love is to have it consistent and clear. So those are the two options. So I don't know whether we need to go to a vote or whether we've got general agreement on that.
Can I come in there, Dave?
Made. Yeah, come in, Terry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the balance what we're proposing is at the moment it's slightly confusing because of the wording in two different places, but at the moment we point blank don't fund any running costs. What we're saying is, or what you're proposing in your notes, is that in exceptional circumstances we might consider it. What we're not saying is you will get your grant automatically. Every grant is decided upon on its merits, but I am quite conscious of the group that Ros refers to. Obviously, I'm aware of who they are. Do very good work, have lots and lots of children and young people that benefit, and through no fault of their own, I don't think they've held a single fundraising event this year. But actually they still have costs that they incur, and I think that would be an exceptional circumstance. If they came back next year, assuming everything gets back to normal, and say, actually, we want the same grant again, but we've held 5 fundraising events, and you can tell that from the accounts and stuff, you can see how much people are raising through fundraising, that would be a no. But in exceptional circumstances, as has been this year, or if there'd been a major increase in a group's sort of take up because of certain circumstances, or something happened which was we deemed to be worthy, I think it still gives ultimately the power to the committee, and we might not deem those circumstances to be exceptional, but it doesn't automatically rule it out, as is currently the case. So I'm quite happy with your suggestion. It doesn't say we will, but it says we might, is my understanding of the wording.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any other hands up.
No.
What do you want to do with this, Dave? Do you want to sort of present them en bloc and take it from there? Or we've heard Mike speak and Jane. I can't see how many people are here, to be honest with you, but should you propose them en bloc and then see if that carries favour, and then if not, amend them?
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering whether, because you've used the word exceptional there, that maybe we should be stronger, rather than saying general maintenance and running costs will not normally be funded, saying something like general maintenance and running costs will not be funded apart from in exceptional circumstances.
Okay. Jane, does that make more sense to you, or does that wording still not acceptable?
Oh, brilliant. I timed that perfectly because I put my hand up at the same time as you asked. My concern is Dave has clearly stated that the overriding goal from these amendments is to aid clarification. We've actually just added ambiguity because define exceptional circumstances. And that is going to be individual to each individual, and what is exceptional to someone might be the norm for someone else. And I'm not sure that that adds it. And I would rather see, my personal view, and I believe that's been backed by Mike, for that to say, and not for routine general maintenance or running costs. End of. Thank you,
Jane. And hands up from Roy as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit I'm in agreement with both Jane and Mike, but if we were minded to add something, for me it would at least have to say proven exceptional circumstances, because there would need to be a great deal of proof, not just somebody saying, you know, that this is not the same. So it would need to say it in writing that they have to prove the exceptional circumstances.
Okay, and a hands up from Mike, please.
Just again, thanks very much, Terry. I take your point, but I think that we are not clarifying to the organisations what they can expect. So the implication is that they can apply and find it's a waste of time because it's knocked out at that stage. I would go for clarity, as Jane has suggested. So I think I'd want to stick to it. That has an ongoing effect, because it means that if we take the whole of Dave's proposals take Dave's proposals as a whole, I would feel obliged to vote against, because I don't agree with this. So perhaps we need to deal with this issue separately.
Thank you. And a hands up from Brenda, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can see both sides of this, because a lot of people are struggling and a lot of groups are struggling. We've always said we're not there to run maintenance and general running of an organisation, because, as Jane has already said, you should have that in the background. I think if we leave that in under exceptional circumstances, everyone's going to come back at you and say, but I've got an exception, so I haven't been able to open, I haven't been able to do this. So it's not just this one group, it's going to be lots of groups are going to say it. I mean, I could now say to you, well, Charles Bowl museum hasn't been able to open. Are we going to give them a big fat grant to run their maintenance costs? You know, I'm just saying there are lots out there. So we need, whatever you do, we need to be really specific in the writing of them grants.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. I do take your point. I would sort of point out that it's a £300 grant. It's, you know, not a huge grant, and there is a capped budget, which, you know, we're not inundated with grant requests because perhaps our rules are too tight. But I do take your point. Dave, do you want to propose the changes which are not controversial first? Okay. And we'll get those agreed, and then we'll do a separate vote on whether or not to change the, I think it's probably DH2 is probably the one that's the controversial bit. Yeah. But if you propose the rest, and the sort of tidying up and that sort of thing, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. Do we just want to take Carla?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see Carla.
Up, yeah.
Yes, yes, please, Carla.
I'm not sure if Jane wanted another.
Oh.
Have you already spoken, Jane, or did you want to speak again?
I'll take Carla first because she hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll come back to Jane.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. I do agree that there is in the point that they're looking for more clarity to narrow down the terms of the grant, as Jane and Mike mentioned. However, if we having this conversation about a year ago, before COVID, we would never really be fully aware, and I don't think we'll quite well ever be, in case there's a second wave or anything else happens afterward, of what exceptional circumstances life and can throw at us, basically. So because you mentioned that, as you mentioned, £300 is a small amount. It's not a huge amount of money. we don't have those many applications coming in, and I think it's quite simple for the committee when we're evaluating the applications to make our own judgment as a committee whether or not there's an exceptional circumstances, having looked at the application for the grant and the accounts of the organizations applying and asking for the support. I don't think it's such a huge deal that we need to narrow it down so much so that make it difficult, that people just find that the council are actually making it difficult for the community groups to access their support. But that's just my personal view anyways. Thank you.
Lovely, and thank you for contributing, Carla. So Dave, do you want to propose, because it's your wording, the relevant DH numbers for the first bit, and we'll take a vote on that. Right,
well, I think we got another hands up here, haven't we? That's Jane, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, Jane.
Jane, would you like
I did say you could come in after Carla.
It's all right, no problem. I know it's a challenge doing the chairing in this medium.
It's so many different screens to flick between. It's
I know.
I thought that was my battery beeping.
I'll be brief to conserve your battery. I would like to make a counter proposal, an amendment to the proposal, which is that we accept all of the DH amendments, barring DH1, which will then have the word normally removed from it, please.
Is there a seconder to Jane's amendment, please?
Yes, I will second that, Mike Brendel.
So just to be clear on ultimately what that amendment would achieve, Jane, all of the alterations which are not controversial would be accepted, but running costs and general maintenance would not be accepted by the committee in any case. Is
Correct.
That the sort of, yeah. Okay, so that's been proposed and seconded.
Chair,
so yes, please, Chris.
I can do a poly, and I've written changes to the small park grants policy, exceptional running costs and exceptional services. Would you like me to press that up and you can vote?
Yes,
on it?
please. So that will be for or against Jane's amendment, which is to accept all of the minor amendments and to rule out running costs and general maintenance contributions. That's for or against that amendment, first of all, please.
So it's on there now, if you see it. It's on the chat.
Thank you.
There should be 7 votes. There's 5 recorded so far.
So we've got Roy and Carla still to vote, please. So that's Roy accounted for, Carla voted for. There's 7 there, yes?
Just to say that Mark's joined the meeting. Mark Robinson. Mark, you'll have to vote if you want to in the chat room, because I've admitted you as a visitor. I don't think it'll let you vote.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything indicating or hearing anything from. Oh, it moved again. Where are we?
It's now gone to 50-50.
Okay. Oh, view results. There we are. Sorry, I've just found the view results button.
Chair.
Is that Mark?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Good morning.
That's quite all right.
I did put a comment in the box. I only joined the meeting about 5 minutes ago, so apologies for late joining. But it'd be remiss of me to actually vote on an item I haven't heard the debate, so I actually abstained.
That's fine. Thank you for that, Mark. That makes it tally in that case. So it's 4 against, which is the norm for our committee to have a tie vote. Thank you very much for that, everybody. I did vote against. I did vote against. Go on, Ros.
Sorry, Brenda voted for it as well.
Yeah, she commented in the chat box. And on the results section, it's Brenda managed to actually vote as well. So it's agreeing is Brenda, Roy, Mike and Jane. And against is Carla, Chris, Dave and myself. So I'll use my casting vote in the same way that I voted in the first place, which is against. Moving forward then to tidy the issue off, I'm happy to propose Dave's changes are tabled en bloc, please. So it'll be for or against Dave's changes en bloc. If I could have a seconder for that, please.
Well, I will second that.
Thank you, Dave. And Chris, in the same way, if you could set the Polly thing up to do that vote, please.
Only be a second.
No worries. After this vote, Dave, I am going to have to dash because I'm supposed to check out by 11.
Okay.
They'll be coming turfing me out. I've got to pay as yet.
All right. Yeah, they'll be after you.
Yes, they will. They'll think I've run away.
A moment.
That's okay, Chris. So just while Chris is setting that up, to be clear, it's Dave's changes as written, which would in effect include running costs and general maintenance, and rather than exceptional, it would say not normally. So not normally be granted, but it still gives the committee the power to ultimately say no.
Sorry, it's not working.
Mike, I'm happy to take you while Chris is setting that up.
Yeah, just while that's being done, just to say that I will change my vote because I think we've had a democratic vote and decided one way. So I'm now reluctantly going to vote with the majority.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Here we go, preview. Send. So come on there now. I've just put DH changes.
Oh.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Chris. So the vote should be in your chat box, folks.
Oh, God.
There's one more. There's two more to come, I think.
Okay, so I'm learning with this Polly thing. It's quite handy when you can click view results. So we've got Carla still to vote, please, and Brenda still to vote, please.
It wasn't in my chat box, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, so I've just put my answer.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The thing with me is not showing up for me at the moment.
Okay, I've taken Brenda's as written on screen. Carla, did you want to? Are you able to type onto the screen if you're for or against? Oh, agree. Okay, so
that's clear. 6-4. Two against.
6-4. I think it'll be 3 against because it'll be Roy, Jane, and Brenda. And if Carla's added to the top figure, that's 5, 4, and 3 against. Is there any? I don't think there's anybody not voting. And Mark, I assume in the same principle, you'll abstain again. So,
Yes,
lovely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So that is carried, folks. Thank you very, very much for that. And thank you for Dave for the work you've put into that review.
Yeah.
We'll move on to item 270. And I am going to hand over to Dave to chair for the final 3 items. But thank you all very much for today.
Better go and pay your bill, Terry.
Yes, or run very fast, one of the two. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, have a nice holiday.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, you were talking to Terry. Sorry. Okay, well, I think actually we still have some things to consider on 26920, because there was an item about the to consider applications and future arrangements for the fund, which I think was referring to the approach to Norfolk Community Foundation, if I'm right, Ros.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, there were 2 points really. Firstly, because of the closure of many sort of sites and difficulties buying equipment and all sorts of stuff, I just want to check with the councillors that you're happy for me to give small grants an extension of 12 months on their delivery time.
Okay, what's reporting back? Yeah, and we've got Jane. If you'd like to come in, Jane, that'd be great.
I need to abstain from this conversation as treasurer for 3rd Thetford Scout Group, who is currently in receipt of a grant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, back to you, Ros. What was that?
Yes, so I was asking whether we could give all the recipients from January really an extra 12 months to allow them to, because we actually don't know how difficult it's going to be going forward as well.
Yeah.
What I will do at the next meeting, because October, I will do a full report on all the grants that we've allocated and the reports that we've had back. But at the moment, I've got a couple of organisations who are particularly anxious that they haven't been able to spend the money in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is difficult, isn't it? And we got Chris Harvey's got an agreed in the chat box. I've got an activity, I think, coming in from Stuart and Brenda, but it hasn't appeared yet. Anybody got anything to say on that? I think it would be a good thing to give people time. Brenda's agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're agreeing that one, unless anyone's got any objections. Oh, we've got Carla with her hands up. So if you come in, Carla, please.
Thanks, Dave. I'm just gonna raise the same point as Jane. Although the group that I'm part of received the grant this year, I don't think the 12 months issue affecting them, but because they are in receipt of a grant within this 12-month period, I will also abstain on this one. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Have we got anybody objecting? I think we've had some agreements. I would agree as well. So we'll move on if there is nobody objecting.
Vice Chair, it's Chris. Can I just say, do you need a recommendation on this? Perhaps we ought to ask Rosalind. Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this is just a steer from the committee, really. We're not spending any money, so.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, that's great then. Okay, so we'll move on to the last item in 26920, which is to consider grant request received. And I think there was only one, wasn't there?
Oh, sorry, Dave, do you mind if I just go back and tell you about how I've got on with the community fund?
Oh, sorry, yes, there's another thing.
So I was tasked to invite them to come and do a presentation about them possibly administering the grant for us.
Okay.
Basically, what they said is I needed to send them all the details of our grant for them to discuss whether they would be something they'd be interested in. And whether it would be in our benefit, because it could be quite expensive because it's quite a small grant scheme. So I sent them all that information, and I've got a phone call appointment with the chief executive tomorrow morning. But from the initial discussions, I think what they're sort of saying is that £6,000 is such a small grant pot, and the amount of work it takes to do the checks and all the organisations and pull all the paperwork is the same for a big grant as a small grant. So they're saying there's a lot of work there, and actually the cost of administering 6,000 could be not worthwhile. But what they did say is because there's the Thetford Shines Brighter pot, whether there's any way that those two pots could be merged. And does anybody know about the Thetford Shines Brighter? I actually haven't had this definitive, but I would like a steer whether councillors are saying absolutely not, we do not want anyone to go near that pot, or we're happy to have exploratory conversations.
I think also, I think in the paper that came out, there was an issue about the fact that councillors would need to make a final decision. So although we would have them initially administering it, I think we would still have to pay a part. So I'm not quite sure of the value, but I've got a hands up from Stuart. So perhaps Stuart would like to come in.
Yeah, I take on board, and I think Ros is right. We've got such a small pot compared to what they deal with. I just think it's nice for us to have that ability up our sleeve to meet requirements as and when they come in. We often say the town council can't help in some matters, but if we have got a small pot allowed, we have that facility to make the final decision. So I think I'd sooner keep the status quo.
Okay. I was going to suggest that Jane has kindly put a link up for us to look at about the Thetford Shines Brighter Fund. Thank you, Jane. I was going to suggest that in view of your telephone conversation, I think you said it was tomorrow, maybe we should just have this on our agenda for next time, and we may have a little bit more information. But at the moment, I'm getting a feel that it may be something that's not going to happen. But there's no point in ceasing the conversation if you've already got a telephone call with the chief exec there. So that is my suggestion, that we move it on to the next meeting and hear the result of your discussion. That seem good with everyone? Anybody object to that? Okay, I think that's what we're going to do then. Great. And so then we're moving on to consider grant requests. I think it's just the one, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is for the Cluniac conference, which will be promoting the importance and heritage of Thetford Priory. So,
and we have a hands up from Jane on this. Thank you, Jane, if you'd like to come in.
At the risk of moving a meeting along, as we've had all the paperwork in advance, I would like to propose that we agree to award this grant, please, and thank you.
Right.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah.
Second.
Who was that? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think that was Carla who seconded
Thank you,
it.
Carla.
Chris Harvey has said agreed, and Brenda's got her hands up.
Wait a minute. Yeah, thank you. Step in, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Just a few questions for Stuart, really. I expect that's why he's come along to the meeting. When was this arranged, Stuart? Because I didn't hear anything about this. What was it just done between the core board of Thetford Society?
Right. So this is as I said in the paperwork, it was originally supposed to be in Southend. They pulled out, and I suggested that, hey, why don't you come to Thetford and we'll host it. So I've been in contact with the Cluniac group, and the idea was to put on the conference here to invite all the town councillors to be part of that conference, which would be a talk from the professor at Leicester University, who's now at Loughborough, who did the Priory Tombs thing. So I've been putting it together to step in because this year's one was cancelled. One of the interesting points, which I do make reference to there, is the guy from Cluny in France who's spearheading the listing of the Cluniac sites of the World Heritage Sites is coming along as well. So, it's a great opportunity for, to promote Thetford's site, but also for us to understand how important that site is. So it's still scheduled. Obviously, with today's announcement, we may have to postpone it for a few months, but I'm still having to have that conversation. But at the moment, it's still going ahead.
Okay, and just I mean, I agree with the whole thing. Just aside from that, are Thetford Society thinking of having meetings in the future? Because me and Jenny haven't heard anything.
I've been in contact with the venue, which is the United Reformed Church. They are not having any hire of their premises this side of Christmas. So we're waiting to see when that comes out.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Oh, sorry, was there something else, Brenda?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Stuart. It looks like an exciting event, and we've had a proposer and a seconder, and we've had at least one person agree, and I'm agreeing. So if we don't get any objections, I propose that I don't think we need a formal vote on this, do we? We can just agree.
Thank you.
It would be good to have a formal vote, but people can just write agreed in the channel, if that's all right, or just say agreed.
If you can do that, please, if you're in agreement.
Okay, we're past the post, guys.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, that's great. That's good. I'm looking forward to attending that event. It sounds good. Right, we're moving on to 27020, which is correspondence. So it's over to you, Ros.
About 7 months ago, 8 months ago, we had a resident write to us asking whether he could remove one of the large central stems of the trees in Frederick's Wood. And we took it to council, and at the time, because of all the pressure on other people wanting to cut things back in terms of tree work, we as a council, we said no, and we wrote to Breckland to ask whether they would consider listing Frederick's Wood. The resident has come back to us at 6 months on, and he's asked again whether we could have that tree limb removed. Dave and I went out for another site visit, and he said that he's happy to pay for everything. We've had a site visit from Hugh Coggles, who's the tree officer from Breckland, and he's happy for us to have that the tree limb removed. And so we're bringing it back just to check that councillors would be okay if we do proceed and allow him the permission to remove the limb that's causing him the problem.
Okay, and we have a hands up from Jane again. Thank you very much, Jane.
Thank you. Would this be on the proviso that the works were carried out by a qualified tree surgeon and we would require copies of risk assessments and so on, please?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'll just come in here because I went on a site visit with Ros here, and I think when it came up before the council earlier this year, I think it was probably January, the notes from the meeting were asking for the crown to be removed, and I think that's probably why it was not agreed. But he's actually asking for one large limb to be removed, and I think the was it Hugh from the council has agreed that that would be not detrimental to it, and I thought it was a very reasonable request, and so I would definitely support this. So have we got general agreement? Do we need a vote on this, Jane? Ros, sorry.
Sorry, my phone was going. No, I think that's fine.
Okay, so I'm not getting any objections coming up in the chat, and nobody else with a hand up. So I'm going to say that we're agreed on this, unless somebody now puts in an objection. Okay, so that's agreed. Thank you very much. Anything else on the correspondence that we need to?
The other thing was flying drones on Barnum Cross Common. We had a request from a military gentleman who's got all the right qualifications and has public liability insurance and stuff, asked whether he could fly drones on the section of Barnum Cross Common next to the car park. We haven't actually got a policy on our drones, and we are actually going to allow the Thetford Peace Project to do some drone footage of our cemetery, but that's a benefit to us as well as for them, and we can close that space. I'm not sure we can't really close Barnum Cross Common because of the access arrangements, so they're requesting permission to fly the drones, but public could be on site. I think I'm answering that. I think I'm recommending you to say actually no.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
The councillor's got a view on this. I got Stuart, please.
Yeah, I'm not certain, but I think drone operators, do they have to be licensed and have to have training and all that? So if that is the case, I would suggest that if they've got that training, they should be mindful of where they do. There are obviously a couple of people who have done drone footage in the town. They do need a place to take off, and they need to have it in sight. So I think if he's got his public liability, the space is quite large up there. If he's got the training in place, it's very much where they land So if that could be, fenced off, I'd support it. But we
Okay.
probably do need a policy.
Okay, that was Stuart. And Brenda's asking why. Would you like to come in and are you saying why does he want to do it, or why is somebody saying that we don't want to do it? Come in, Brenda.
I think he's got why he wants to do it. He wants
I've got a baby here somewhere. Yeah, I've got a baby in the background.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Oh. Yeah, I'll just argue. Why does he want to do it? Because we say Barnum Common, but actually you could be flying near people's homes, and what they do in their back gardens up to them. I just don't know why he wants to do it.
He's basically looking for another site, in terms of for training of other drone flyers, because he does the training for drones.
But he can't do that at the moment, can he? Because you're only allowed to have 6 people or something. I don't know.
Well, that's a consideration he would have to make. Okay, so that's answered. Has that answered your question, Brenda? So, of course, we've got a lot of people with hands up, and I'm going to move on to Roy now, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My biggest concern would be where he wants to do it. Down near that car park, you've got lots of people coming in and out. They will see these things taking off, and the next thing they will hit the car in front of them, or they will turn across a car. I don't think that's something that should be anywhere near a main road, especially the 134, because that is quite busy, and you get people start, rednecking things taken off from the common. I think that will be an accident waiting to happen.
Okay, thank you, Roy. And Chris Harvey?
Yeah, I have no objection to this at all. I think it could be beneficial as well. It could spot antisocial behaviour. We could use his film. I'd much rather us have a legitimate drone operator on there than people who are not. Back in the day, people can complain. We've had hang gliders take off from there. We've had those funny little aeroplanes with propellers take off from there. We've had remote controlled cars zapping about on there. I really don't see it's a problem, to be honest, and I'm in support.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And Mike Brindle, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I am against it. I think that it will encourage, to use Chris's word, illegitimate users. The fact that the town council has allowed one is going to, other people will take it for granted that they can join in. So I think if we want to encourage drones, this is the way to do it. Bit concerned about other users. There are people fly kites on there. I'm a bit suspicious, to be honest. I wonder whether there isn't a site further down the road. There's a little used RAF station from which there's no flying. Is there no space there that could be used? So I'd keep them out.
Okay, and Carla, please.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to say that if you're flying a drone nowadays, the legislation, and this is actually legal ruling, it's quite restrictive about it. You do have to have training. You do have to have some sort of insurance. You have to be aware which areas are interdicted to flying, which areas you can land into, and that course and that training gives you awareness of what's private, and what's where you can fly and what you can record when it comes to peeking in people's gardens. I don't think that's a problem at all. If you're a responsible pilot, if you have your training and your certification in check, you should be able to do all those things with a certain degree of responsibility nowadays. Therefore, I have no issue with that whatsoever. Although we do need a policy. If we have a policy, it should save us a bit on this conversation, to be honest. Thank you.
Okay, and Jane, please.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Whilst I appreciate Roy's comments regarding driver distraction, if we followed that route, the Osprey would not be playing over the battle area next to the A11, and theoretically we wouldn't have cattle or sheep on the Barnum Cross Common because people look at those as they drive past. I absolutely echo Carla's sentiments. Providing they are correctly qualified and they have public liability in place, there should be no problem. I have an acquaintance who has recently qualified on a commercial basis, and it's incredibly stringent. And as the correspondence from the resident highlighted, in order to undertake that training, he had to go a considerable distance for it. So actually, there's something quite positive that we can support here. I would suggest that risk assessment would need to be in line with our open spaces policy. But again, I echo Councillor Barretto's comment. We need to form a policy on this and enable potentially a license. It's not a huge thing, but for use of our land, because then those people have been gone through, you know, an assessment, and that they are appropriately equipped to fly safely. And that's what we're talking about, is ensuring safety. Thank you.
Okay, and I think Roy, you'd like to come in again, would you, on that? You're on the list again.
Thank you, Chair. I think Jane has just said everything that I was going to say.
Okay.
But the only thing I wondered, as we've got Mike here, perhaps they could approach the Charles Burrell and fly off their piece of land next door to it. They might have a policy.
That's a possibility, yeah. And before we go to Brenda, I just need to say that we've, oh no, we haven't, sorry, it's only 11 o'clock, so it's not 11:30 because we started at 9:30. I thought we were going over the 2 hours, sorry. Over to you, Brenda.
Yeah, in brief, how do we stop people? So we can't stop anyone because we're not there 24/7. So people are going to do it. I think me and Ros, we had to question somebody on Castle Park, and it's saying, I've got a licence, I've got this and got the other. We should have set up a policy then, Ros, but we didn't. So, yeah, so people are doing it on Castle Park. How do we stop them on Barnum Common? I think the only way going forward, as Jana says, is get a policy in place. We need to put signs up, point them to the area that we would like them to start flying from. So, you know, we don't want it in the car park, we want it further over, and permission must be granted by the town council. Then if anybody comes back and says somebody was doing this, this and this, we know that whoever that person wasn't granted permission by the town council. That's all really. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's covered everyone, although it looks as though I think some people are typing in the box, but we might get something in a second. We've had quite a number of views there, and I've got Carla with another hands up, so I'll let you come in, Carla, and then I'll sum up.
Thanks, Chair. Very, very quickly, just to make a point that for the, you know, pretty much all the drones, if I'm not mistaken, it's about the 250 grams in weight. That's a certain weight. If they're below that, they're considered, you know, irrelevant. They won't fly to a certain height. It's like a toy. But if you anything above 250 grams, has a registration number to it, so it can easily be traced to its owner. This is all part of the certification, and it's got to do with the implications of insurance and liability in its use. And thank you.
Okay, thanks for that bit of information. I think the most salient point that has come out of our discussion is the need for a policy, and so
Agreed.
I would recommend that we have to develop a policy, and we do not give permission until we've got that policy in place. So that is my proposal.
Jane Jones would like to second that, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a proposal and we've got a seconder, and so are we in agreement with that, or do we need to vote on it?
I think I could say, Chair, it can't be a recommendation as such because it's not been advertised prior to that. So we just take it that the committee are in agreement to discuss a policy in the next month's meeting.
Okay, so we might have somebody done some work towards a policy before then, or it may just be an agenda item and that kicks it off at the next meeting. Does that sound right?
Agreed.
Oh, Jane said action point.
Thank you.
And Ros Ros said, are we saying no until the policy is in place? Or in play? Are we? Is that what we're saying? We're not going to make a decision on this request. Are we in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Agreed.
the policy is the next movement. Lovely. I think we've dealt with that one then. Ros, have we got anything else under correspondence? That we need to...
Just to say, we had a resident complain about the area at the back of King Square that goes on to St Giles car park. There was a beech hedge planted by Breckland before we took it over, and there's a tree that's grown there by accident. So as we've agreed, we will clear that area up over the winter and just sort it out, just to let people know that.
Okay. Right, well, I think we will probably move on then to the next item, unless there are any other questions on correspondence. Okay. Community engagement. Have we got any...
So we need to do a press release about the Castle Park replacement piece of equipment and just signage at the park.
Right, yeah.
I think I'll do a small grants announcement, because I normally do one at the beginning of the school term. So just telling people about a small grants program.
Yeah.
And I will. The two consultations are going out about Nuns Bridges and the Guildhall Marketplace.
Okay.
Anything
so
else?
Are we all agreed with those, or has anybody got any comment on that? I've got a thumbs up from Jane. I've got no objections coming up in the chat, so I think that yes, we're agreeing.
Agreed.
That's what's happening, and agreed. Thank you very much. And then we have committee officers updates. 27320.
Nothing to report under that item.
Nothing to report. I think we are at the end of our meeting. So thank you everyone for your input and your content, and I'm sure Terry is having a lovely time in Scotland.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I've got a last minute hand up from Brenda.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to discuss something once it's switched off.
Okay, so
once it's switched off live stream.
Okay, you just want to.
You want the recording stopped?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Now stop.
Joel, can you turn off the live